Brian, let's just jump right in. Tell us, what is the 1776 Project?
So I founded the 1776 Project in 2021. My godson was going to school at home, as most kids in America were, because of the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns. And his mother and father were really horrified by what he was learning. He was reading books like It Happened in Our Town and Race Cars, which tell stories of systemic racism, white privilege, and race essentialism to fourth graders. Completely inappropriate material, especially during a pandemic where children were having immense consequences of learning loss from COVID, as well as just general trauma from having to be locked in their homes all the time. So I started this pact to help flip school boards from liberal to conservative. And the original idea was about mask mandates and lockdowns and CRT. And it just expanded as the issues expanded. So like mask mandates obviously aren't a thing anymore, but we talk about trans issues. And then we go into other things, disciplinary issues, the fact that we don't, because there are some very violent children in schools that are a threat to students and adults. We focus on things like curriculum as an overall thing. We focus on the trans issue and the idea of protecting biological women's sports and biological women's spaces. So we've done over 250 elections. We've won about 140 of them in many states, like about a dozen states, from all the way from the East Coast to about Texas and Colorado, as far west as Colorado so far. But we're doing more this November, so it's very, very exciting, and people should check it out.
Yeah, I mean, tell us about what we're up against here. I think we're well aware of generally what's happening in schools, but most people don't really understand the mechanics. Who's pushing this? Why they're pushing this? Is it coming from the school boards? Is it coming from the teachers? I mean, what is the opposition that we're up against?
So one thing people don't understand about education is it is an enormous, ludicrously enormous business. There's a huge business model. Teachers and administrators will spend thousands of dollars going to conferences throughout the year where people push stuff on them constantly. And when a person becomes a member of a school board, it's like becoming a member of Congress almost. There's already a system in place that is already running and that you're kind of moving through. A lot of people blame what's going on in schools on woke teachers. And there are a handful of woke teachers for sure who are pushing this. Most teachers are not. A lot of this is being done administratively through the superintendents, through the DEI officers, through the racial equity officers that are being pushed in throughout the school. School districts spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year looking for racism and looking for problems of racism. That administratively can be taken care of if the school board, because the school board hires the superintendent. So a lot of that could be changed with that. But there's bigger issues when it comes to like the woke stuff as far as the CRT stuff goes. Some of it is being pushed by the superintendents, the school board members. Some of it is being pushed from the superintendent. Some of it's being pushed from the teachers union. So it's kind of a combination of all three. The school boards have control of the budget and the hiring process and the book purchasing process. So a lot can be taken care of as school boards flip from liberal to conservative. And we saw this just last week. Last week was an enormously successful week, not because we won any elections, but because members that we had gotten elected have started governing. So in Frisco ISD, which is in Texas, they banned biological boys from entering girls' spaces. In Miami-Dade, Florida, they are starting a new program to incorporate classical education within the public school curriculum, which is like the most exciting thing in the entire world. And another school district that I've recently been, but I've been involved with, recently pushed a new bill on bullying when it comes to apps. And that's super important for mental health of children. And I think the question I think conservatives should ask when it comes to education overall is, how do we produce the most well-rounded, if we can, children who know the basics, not only to become good stewards of this country and good citizens, but also to become efficient workers, a member of the workforce, and assimilated into our culture, which happens. And that's the work that we're doing with getting these members elected and then seeing, how they help change education.
Right. And it's funny, you were talking about races in Texas and in Florida. And I think this isn't just happening in left-wing San Francisco or in New York. This is happening all over the country. It's happening in red areas. The schools in West Texas aren't always that much better than some of the schools in liberal areas of the country, for example.
That's such an important point because it is a wall that I've had to fight through constantly. I'll tell you a very quick story. In 2022, we decided to get involved in Bentonville, Arkansas. Bentonville is part of the Bible Belt. It's in the Ozarks. It is voted Republican forever. It's where their governors and their senators come from. It's a wealthier part of the state. And you would think, and it's from the head of it's where Walmart was founded. So you would think Walmart, Ozarks, Arkansas. I mean, this is Republican, conservative. It would be, if any place would be immune from CRT, it would be a place like that. And what happened was in Fayetteville and in Arkansas and in Bentonville, Arkansas, the Walmart Corporation was funding DEI trainings, diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings to teachers, 3-hour-long trainings for all teachers in K through 8 at some point. I don't think they did K, but maybe it was like 4 through 12, something like that. And especially for history teachers had like 2 or 3 trainings. And they would go over what systemic racism was, how they were racist, how to break from white supremacy, everything, all the tropes that, being on time, being competitive, that's systems of white supremacy, the most insane things that's a part of race essentialism and ultimately critical race theory. And it was called Operation Groundwater. And it was called groundwater because groundwater can be toxic like white privilege. It was in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Amazing.
And we were like, okay, we're going to commit to the school board. And when we did, it was a huge backlash against us. The local media slammed us, saying this is not true. There's no CRT in the school system. There's no CRT in Arkansas. The local Republicans wouldn't help us. We asked literally everybody to help get involved. No one would help us because the answer was it's not happening in our school. And right before the election, which was the midterm, so no one was paying attention to school boards, but right before the election, a student recorded his teacher explicitly saying CRT can be used to positively change America. And here's what it is, and here's what it's not. It's not Marxist. It's not anti-American. We're trying to improve the system. Literally teaching CRT. There was no nuance, no nothing. He's literally did a PowerPoint on how CRT is a positive use force. And I couldn't get traction for it in that moment. And in the end, we just won 1 of the 5 seats. But if it could happen in Bentonville, it could happen in literally everywhere. And I'm lucky that now we've had a lot of people in Arkansas reach out to us and say we want to help because the situation has become so much more well known there. But if it could happen there, I'm telling you, it could happen in any red county, in any red state. And you should approach your elected officials like you're a Republican in a blue state with a lot of hesitancy and demanding accountability. And there's nothing wrong with that.